time to start a new series. Welcome back to the Scale Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. Today we're starting a new series here on the SBG. We're calling it Overhauling. And on this first series of Overhauling, we're taking a look at the Element Enduro. This series is designed to show you what's possible with a certain platform. And I put a few rules in place to keep this sort of a consistent series that I can do with multiple brands. I thought it was key to have the following. First and foremost, I had to already own the truck. I thought that was key to this whole thing, as I wanted it to be a series where I could actually go and find upgrades already available and not have to wait for the market to catch up. So it'll also be a lot more helpful to you as a viewer to be able to follow along and pick up all of these things as they come out. The truck has to have already been used. I don't want to have anything that's box stock. I want to have something that's maybe had a few upgrades here and there, but definitely could use a lot more. And that's essentially it. The purpose of this whole series, Overhauling, not overhaulin', because I don't want to be sued. The purpose of Overhauling is to build this truck to my specifications, whether that be solely upgrading the performance, whether that also be adding to the overall appearance of the truck. And being part of the Scale Builders Guild, you know that every truck is going to feature some custom work as well. Really, I just want to try to take these existing platforms and give you some inspiration to help make this truck even more your own. This will not be a budget build-off, so don't expect me to stick to any sort of budget each week. I'll be spending money as I see fit, as I do want to make this vehicle as good as I possibly can. Starting this series, I thought it would be great to start with the Element Enduro. I've had that truck since May now. It's had a lot of miles put on it, and it's time for it to get a little bit of an overhaul. The truck itself is mostly stock. Not too many things have changed since I first got it because it just kind of worked really well right out of the box. I did really like this platform, and you can watch the review. I'll make sure to put the link up above so you can check that out at your leisure. It is a very nice truck, but it's time to start changing some things. And as you can see, some things have already changed on the truck. From a mechanical standpoint, it is stock. Still using the stock RTR 5-pole brushed motor. That's a non-rebuildable can, so that motor is as stock as it gets. Still stock steering servo, believe it or not. That thing has taken a fair bit of abuse, mostly in the first weekend that I owned it, because we were not nice to these trucks out there at Pro-Line by the Fire, I will say that for sure. I also changed out the shorty battery tray for the longer battery tray for longer run times. I also swapped out some of the black plastic for the harder gray plastic compound that Element offers as an upgrade. And I also upgraded to the Reefs RC stamped steel sliders. Try saying that 3 times fast. Otherwise, the truck is very much stock. There haven't been a ton of upgrades. There's going to be a ton of upgrades available for this truck as it rolls into the future. There are lots of things already on the market. Most notably, a few things from SSD have made their way to market, including brass weights for the front and rear axle, aluminum link mounts, and aluminum diff covers. Before we start installing anything, it's a really good idea to clean up your truck, as a lot of dirt and debris can get into those bits and pieces, and they can cause excess wear much earlier than it really needs to. So let's start by cleaning it out. I like to use a little compressed air to spray down the entire truck. I try to get into most of the nooks and crannies with that compressed air, but of course, dirt is pretty invasive and it will go just about anywhere you'll let it. To get rid of the more ground-in grime, I use a paintbrush and a pipe cleaner. These are 2 things that I've had in my toolbox for I can't tell you how long, but they're an excellent thing to have handy, as they can really get into all the little crevices and all the little pockets where all that dirt collects. I like to start with a clean truck, especially when I'm going to be making some upgrades like I am today, so it's better to just get that out of the way as soon as possible. Once you've had a chance to clean everything off, do a visual inspection and make sure that everything's in good working order. All of my rod ends on my links seem to be in pretty good condition. There are a lot of scrapes and scratches on those links, but nothing major and nothing that would prevent any performance from leaking out. Because I guess performance is a liquid. I'm going to start with the SSD aluminum link mounts. This is a really easy process. Step 1 is to remove your lower shock mount screw, then remove your link mount screw, and then remove the 2 screws that are holding the actual link mount on the axle. You're good to take off that old plastic link mount and now add your aluminum link mount. A little thread lock on each screw makes sure that they won't back out on you. And torque everything back down, and that part is essentially finished. Make sure to repeat that on the opposite side. And yeah, those are link mounts installed. Next on the list are these front axle wheel weights, and these are pretty heavy and will certainly aid in performance, as the Element Enduro is a pretty light truck. Having weight down low and unsprung is going to add a ton of performance, and is something that I do recommend when the truck is exceedingly light like the Element. This is a pretty easy upgrade. First step is to remove the screws from the steering linkage. Once those are removed, it's time to remove the actual C-hub itself. There are 2 screws that hold it into place, and they are a pivoting style screws. So remove both of those. Pull the entire C-hub and drive shaft assembly out of the axle. Next, remove the hex and the hex pin so you can remove the drive shaft from the C-hub. SSD includes a new front bearing, but you will need to reuse the old rear bearing. It's a good idea at this point to clean off those bearings as best you can. I just use a little paper towel, and after cleaning my universal drive shaft, I will spray it with a little bit of Mousse Slick from Cow RC. It's a silicone protector and is a nice little thing because it won't collect a lot of dirt, so use this as you see fit. Next, install those bearings into the new brass weighted C-hub. SSD includes all new hardware to use. Instead of using a step-down screw that is on a pivot like in the original kit, this is using a little brass bushing. I torqued everything down, made sure I didn't torque it too far because you do want to have a full range of motion and as little resistance as possible, but also making sure that those screws are still nicely seated. Those are screwing into plastic, so you don't need to add any thread lock. Next, screw your steering assembly back on to the new C-hub with a little bit of thread lock, and that is done as well. Move on to the second one and repeat the process. Now you've got a nicely weighted front axle. The brass axle weights for the rear of the truck are exceedingly easy to put on. This requires very little effort. SSD, of course, includes all the hardware for the rear as well. It's very simple. Remove the hex from your existing axle, remove that hex pin, remove both screws that are holding the rear bearing in place on that axle shaft. Once you've done that, you can place that new brass axle weight directly onto the axle, and using the included flathead screws, screw it onto the axle, and no thread lock is required because you're screwing into plastic. Seems to be a lot of screwing in this video. I'm gonna get demonetized for that. Now that we've added that weight in all 4 corners, I think we're going to have a much better performing truck. And while I really liked the Grabber X3 tires that were included on the Element Enduro, I'm going a little bit smaller on my overall tire diameter. I decided to upgrade to Pro-Line's Mud Terrain TA KM3 in the 4.19 inch style. This is a great looking tire. It's a great performing tire. It's one of my favorites and something I've actually been considering for my full-size truck. This is a really nice small tire, and I think it looks really good with Pro-Line's new Rock Shooter 1.9 composite internal beadlock wheels. And these are plastic rears and machined aluminum fronts. And they are a really nice looking wheel. They also include some small M2 hardware that really kind of sets off the look as well. I think going forward, I'll probably upgrade those to some locked up RC hardware. It just looks better overall and is a lot more realistic than a hex nut. And of course, because they're made by Pro-Line, they really mount very easily to Pro-Line tires. Being that they're 6-lug, that should give you an idea of where I'm going to be taking this build. And if you've got a good guess, why don't you post your guess down below? Let me know what kind of vehicle you think this is going to become. These Pro-Line KM3s are in the G8 compound, which is not their softest compound, but for an everyday, always used kind of tire that's going to see a lot of miles, I think it's going to be just fine for this build. So that's the first round of upgrades that I'm making to the Element Enduro. courtesy of SSD and Pro-Line. And speaking of Pro-Line, if you're interested in saving 10%, you can go to ProLineRacing.com and enter the code SBG10 at checkout to save yourself 10% off your purchases. For this overhauling series, what other upgrades would you like to see on the Element Enduro? I'm always open to feedback, so if you've got a great idea or an upgrade that you'd like to see or a review of an upgrade before you go ahead and make that purchase, why don't you post it down below? I'll make sure to go through all of your suggestions and to make sure to use them in upcoming videos. I'm positive there's a lot more to come for this series, and I'm really looking forward to getting into some of the more detail-oriented things. We will be covering some more performance upgrades in future episodes, including a lot more of the hard plastic compound from Element. There are a lot of upgrades already, and I think one of the things we'll have to address is going to an even more aggressive overdrive. I've got all the parts ready for that, so we will tackle that in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you get updates anytime there's a new video from the Scale Builders Guild. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.